All right. What's up, YouTube? How's it going? Set 8 is here. I feel like every other set has been good, and every other set has been pretty bad. Set 4, amazing. Set 5, a complicated mess with all the hundreds of items. Set 6, beautiful. Set 7, just fucking constant, just one tricks, reroll bullshit, and a bunch of dragons that nobody liked. Set 8, the most flexible set I've seen out of all the sets I've played, and I'm here to break down a lot of new things that you're gonna have to get comfortable and learn in the new set coming up. Very first thing I wanted to show is that they're changing the AD system. All the AD items don't give you any flat AD anymore. It's all percentage based. Champions with higher base AD are gonna benefit a lot more on AD items than champions with low base AD. I think it's a lot more fair. It's a lot more. I really do like this change. A big buff for more value comps. You have more of a reason on playing 3 cost, 4 cost, 5 cost champions instead of always re-rolling 1 cost and 2 costs. I think it's really healthy for the game. Spirit Shojin has been changed a bit. Spirit Shojin now grants 15 bonus ability power, and every third attack restores 20 additional mana. Again, this is a huge buff for Spirit Shojin. Huge buff if you want to play AP. Gives you more mana now, and it gives you AP. So there has been a big change to the crit itemizations in the game now. Glove now does not give you any dodge chance anymore. Previously, it gave you 15% dodge chance and only 5 crit chance. 5% crit chance. Now it's add up to 20 crit chance. No more dodges in the game, which is a bit of a nerf to RFC, because the big draw of making rapid fire cannon is to, your attacks can't miss. Now, I feel like there's not much reason to really make RFC as much. Let's look at all the crit items here. They took out Banshee's Claw, and now it's Guard Breaker, which is a pretty flexible item. Gives you both 15% bonus attack damage and 15 ability power, and you do 30% more damage to shielded enemies. That's pretty flexible item you can build early game. Late game, it's not the strongest unless you are facing a lot of champions that have shield. IE no longer gives you 100% crit, or it previously gave you 75% crit, and anything above 100% crit chance gave you bonus crit damage. So now there's no reason to ever go above 100% crit chance. So don't get baited into critting more and more crit for your champions. Once you're at 100% crit chance, do not go over that. IE now makes your ability critically strike. So previously only Drew Gauntlet can make your abilities crit, but now with IE, you can slam IE on AP units anymore. There's not much point of going JG IE anymore. You can run IE on pretty much any champion. It still would be stronger for AP units to have Jewel Gauntlet than IE, but it's not a huge difference. Still pretty good. Same thing, you can put JG on AD units. They also changed it that for AD champions, their ability won't naturally crit. If their ability does attack damage or magic damage, it needs IE or JG to critically strike now. Now, if you want a chance to crit, you still have to do IE, and it only gives you 15% bonus critical strike. So you're not gonna be guaranteed to crit if you build IE. Oh, they nerfed Archangel Staff, so personally, until they buff this item, I would try not to ever really build this item. It used to be 20 ability power every 5 seconds, I believe. Now it's only 10. So it's a lot more stronger just to build Rabadons or Jewel Gauntlet. I don't think there's any reason to really build Archangel anymore. Same thing with Rageblade. Rageblade got nerfed. Used to be 6% bonus attack speed. Now it's 5%. It's a small nerf, but it does make a big difference. Oh, and then Rabadons also got buffed. It used to be 60, now it's 70. So That's a huge buff. I mean, by the time you see this, they might make these changes, but as of day one, Rabadon's is super strong on AP units. Dragonclaw got a bit of a buff as well. In set 7, Dragonclaw will only regenerate health if it was on a dragon unit, but now you can put it on anybody. Also, I would like to add that Zephyr now gives your team 15% bonus attack speed. I don't know if this is your team or if it's just that unit, but I know that I didn't have that before, so that's pretty good to know as well. Also, a change to Deathblade is that Deathblade used to be a reroll item, so if you plan on 3-starring certain AD champs, in set 7, 3-star Nidalee with Deathblade was really good. Now you can build Deathblade on pretty much any AD champ, and it's just a really good item. So if you get double sword, I will always slam it and try to play an AD champ. And if anybody's wondering, there's no more 2-slot units, so it's really when I was playing PvE, I was trying to think of how am I going to fit in Aurelion Sol. He's a 4-cost champion now, and I realized that he only takes up 1 unit, so that's pretty funny, I think. All right, let's see, is there any other items that changed? There's a lot more spatulas. You guys can learn that when you guys play, but for the most part, everything is the same at set 7.5. Oh, blue buff has a big change too. So as you can read, gives you some bonus mana, gives you 15 bonus ability power. It reduces the holder's maximum mana by 10, and a holder gets a takedown, casts its ability, and whether the ability kills it or its auto attacks kills it, then it will gain 20 mana. So blue buff, I believe, got a pretty big buff. It's pretty strong. All the AP items and AP units I feel like are really strong this set. So I mean, usually once the meta gets solved, it always seems like AP is always the strongest route you can go to, especially late game and early game. Okay, let me go over all the 5-cost champions in the game. I won't be going over any of the champions, it just take too much time. You guys can learn it yourselves, but more often than not, if you ever see a 5-cost in your shop, it says it's pretty flexible, so you'll probably be able to play pretty much any legendary almost at any comp. Affilios, you know, you may not always be able to play him, but he pretty much, what he has is that you filled him and he has 3 abilities. One of them is the Biting Eclipse, in which it can stun a lot of units at once. So he's pretty good if you want to play him as support. There's Dusk Wave, which unleashes a wave of energy in a cone. If you have a lot of AoE damage in your comp, and if you slam like Spirit Shojin, to be fair, Spirit Shojin Guinsoo's, Dusk Wave is really good because you want him to ult as much as possible. If you just have a whole lot of AD damage, then you always want to go Onslaught then, because it just has the most DPS. So if you just have a bunch of AD items, you just put Onslaught. So you have the support. If you can cast a lot, this is the more Dusk Wave does a lot of AoE damage, and then Onslaught does a lot of single target but does the most damage out of all his. Next is Fiddlesticks. What Fiddlesticks does is that he kind of just stands like a tree and doesn't move at all. If you put him in the back of your comp, every time somebody dies, an ally champion dies, he gains 40 ability power, and then once he's 40% health, or if he's the last one alive, he ults their team. But you can also put him on the front line. Once they get him to like 40% health, what he does is that he pretty much CCs the whole team and does a good amount of magic damage and heals himself at the same time. So he's actually a lot stronger on the front line than he is on the back line. If you have a lot of AP items and you don't have really a carry, you can itemize him early. If you hit him early, and you can be your early AP carry, you just put him in the back line and try to put him away that he's the last person alive. But if you already have a damage carry, you typically always want to put him on the front line. He's a lot of CC, a lot of magic damage. He's a pretty good tank even when he's healing himself. So that's Fiddlesticks. Janet's pretty cool. Essentially, she has a civilian synergy, and even if you have only her, she gives your whole team pretty much mana. She also CCs pretty much the entire board almost. She CCs a lot of people. Huge tornado. Does a little bit of damage, but stuns for 1.5 at 2-star 2 seconds. And then at 3-star, she doesn't stun that much, but she does a 3,000 damage. So she's not the strongest 3-star 5 cost in the game, but she's a really good unit that just you want to throw in. Oh, also she has a forecaster synergy, and essentially every single game, the forecaster does a different effect. So um, everybody around her either gets mana, gets ability power, or there's a third one. It's cloudy, windy, and sunny. So anyways, you guys can find that out when you guys play. But yeah, always read it. It's gonna be in the same spot where Mirage was in set 7, with the little icon you can see at the beginning of the game. The you know, you don't really want to formulate your late game around it, to be honest. You know, once you get to the end of the game, if it helps your team out, definitely consider what the forecaster is, or if you just need a lot of CC, she's pretty good. Leona is a DPS unit this game, so she is not a tank. She does a lot of damage, and it's all true damage. So let's read what she does. She locks onto her target, and after a short delay, a laser fires on the locked target, dealing true damage per second to the target, and it deals magic damage nearby as well. It doesn't say in here, but it never stops ulting until that unit is dead. It's pretty funny. You definitely want a healing item. Bloodthirster or Gunblade is even better, because you can heal yourself and another unit. And then you really don't need Drill Gauntlet. It's really useless. Again, it's true damage. You don't really need more damage. You just do tank items and maybe a healing item, and you're set to go. Typically, you want to line her up in front of the other team's biggest tank, because you pretty much just take them out of the game. Next is Mordekaiser. Mordekaiser sends the enemy into, well, pretty much the whole board into the Shadow Realm. It's pretty funny, and he just throws a building on the entire team. Sometimes the targeting can be kind of weird, in which he throws a building onto the board and only hits like one unit, but he does a good amount of damage to the whole team, and he shreds everybody's magic resist. So he's really good on an AP comp, and if you just need, you know, some extra damage, he's pretty good at that too. He's also ace, so if he's your only ace, he can execute the other team if they're low. So pretty good unit to throw in. I agree kind of with what it has here. You really just want to do tank items for the most part, just because you really want him to try to cast twice. The second cast is pretty good. Nunu is pretty funny. I'll let you guys find out what he looks like in the game, but essentially he doesn't attack anybody really. Everybody kind of compares him to a Roomba this set, because he just randomly goes around the board and pushes the snowball. So slowly rolls a snowball around the board, dealing magic damage to all enemies it passes through, and gaining mana per second. I don't really understand the mana. When it gains mana, it grows the ball even bigger. They move a little bigger, the ball gets a little bigger, and the damage gets a little bigger. Ionic Spark is really good. Good tank items is pretty good on them. It's really meant to be a tank, and I don't know if it says it here, but it also taunts everybody it's nearby too. So it's a pretty good tank. Nunu's pretty funny to watch. It's just your team can be fighting on one side of the board, and Nunu is just rolling its snowball on the other side. So it kind of griefs your team, but Nunu is actually pretty good. Syndra is probably, I think, is the weakest fight cost in the game so far, but essentially what it does is that throws a random unit on your bench onto the board, gives them health, a shield. Her synergies doesn't really go with most comps. It only really goes in, you know, Star Guardian Heart comps. There's really no other synergies you really want to throw her in there. She doesn't have her own unique synergies, so there's not really much reason to throw Syndra in unless, you know, it synergizes with you. Still a pretty decent unit if you have Star Guardian in and she can cast a whole lot. You know, you can have 8 units on your board, 9 units on board, and then have like, or you can start with 9 units on your board and end up with like 12. So it's definitely pretty good. You can just have some legendary champs on your bench or some threat champions and throw them in there, and they would fight for you. So she's a decent, pretty good 5 cost champ, but she's he's not very flexible, so keep that in mind. And then lastly is Ergot, is the only threat 5 cost, and he's pretty good. He does 80 damage, but he's not really an 80 carry. You really just want him to cast as much as possible, because what his cast does is that it does a huge wave that deals percent maximum health damage as magic damage. So you know, even though his auto attacks does a lot of AD damage, it's not really enough to really warrant 80 items, but he stuns like half the board. So whatever is in front of him, he throws a big wave. So try to position him in front of, you know, where their team is mostly located at, you know, knocks them up, push them actually closer to you, and then, you know, stuns them for a bit, and then you have a chance to actually get gold. So pretty good unit, and this is a champion you can throw in any comp if you just need one. And he gives you gold or even components sometimes, so it's probably good to throw him as early as possible if you can get him. All right, and that's all the 5 costs. Let's go on to the kind of the new classes. There's too many classes and synergies to go over, but I'll quickly just say that Ace is the execute. You can either have 1 or 4 aces. You can't have 2 or 3 aces. So 1 ace is pretty easy to transfer items to Draven, to Samira, or Misfortune to Mordekaiser. So here Draven's an AD champ, Misfortune's an AP champ, Mordekaiser's an AP champ. Tank items from Mordekaiser, which is not a bad idea. He's more of a utility support, so really you probably just stay on Misfortune. But early game you can go to Draven, and then once you hit Samira, you can sell the Draven, play Samira. Aegis is the new Mystic magic resist synergy. Brawlers, it used to give your whole team additional health. Now it only gives your brawlers percent max health. So 2 brawlers is not that good anymore, just because their health is pretty low and you don't really get that much of a bonus, and it doesn't really buffs your team. So I wouldn't really run brawler early game unless you 2-star them, because somebody else has a better front line. You're probably going to lose. A defender is the new armor tank, so you can either run defender, Aegis depending on the lobby. Duelist is back, more attack speed. Hacker, so they took away assassins. There are no more assassins in the set, thank God. Great Mort Dog. But Hacker summons a Hackerim, which is just a Hackerim that takes that unit to the enemy's backline. So you can designate 1 unit to kind of be an assassin, and they get Omnivamp. So, you know, it's pretty good. You get some Omnivamp because your assassin will get targeted the moment one of your tank units died. He would get pretty much targeted by the backline. So you got to make sure that whoever you have in the Hacker is able to really burst down their backline. And typically he might, usually when they go to the backline, they might, I've seen them auto the front line like once or twice and then refocus to the backline. It's kind of weird and buggy, but they eventually burst down the backline, and it's really good on Zed and Zoe. Even LeBlanc. I mean, look, these are all Hacker units and they're really good on going to the backline, but you guys can be creative and, you know, put anybody in the backline. Mascot is a good tank. Usually you only go 2 mascot. You really go deep in this tree. Yeah, mascot is not something you should really prioritize in this set. Heart gives your team ability power with every cast. Prankster is pretty good on making your team a bit tanky, and when you have Echo and Zoe in, or Echo and Jinx, it makes it pretty funny. You guys can see that once they get down to 50% health, they move to a safer place and then leaves places a dummy. So it's a pretty good, it's kind of tank, and these units do, Jinx and Zoe do good damage, and Echo's a really good tank. So it's really good synergy. Recon gives you crit chance, and like I said, there's no point of going above 100% crit chance anymore. So if you have IE with 3 recon gives you exactly 100% crit chance. So don't go for recon if you already have IE. If you plan on going for a recon, don't ever slam IE, because it also makes your spells crit. So there's really no point. It's just kind of based on what you want to play. Renegade is just a good overall. Renegade do more damage. pretty simple here. When you have 3 renegade, all your renegades do 40%. Once they're the last one standing, they do an 60% damage. Pretty simple. Spell slinger, an AP trait. You know, every 5 seconds their next auto attack fires a pretty powerful magic damage. You know, 50% of their ability power is magic damage. Pretty simple. Sure shot is a super strong AD comp. Every 5 seconds they gain bonus attack damage. These comps scale with their front line essentially, so the stronger your front line, the stronger your sure shots. You really want to extend the fights as much as possible with if you play sure shots. There's admin. Admin's a very fun synergy. Once you get a 2 admin, there's a configuration in which a buff happens to your team either at the start of combat, when an ally dies, or once your units get to usually under 50% health. Once you guys get to admin, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, but admin is a pretty good scaling comp, or it's really good at early game. You can play it in the early game and use it's pretty much like gives you 3 choices, kind of like augments, and you can pick a configuration that either scales into the late game or just kind of makes your comp strong for the early game. It's kind of based on how you guys want to play it. And then as you go down to 4 and 6, you know, once you get 4, you get another effect. So you get 2 effects round starts, or when an ally dies, or when they get to a certain health. If you get 6 admin is really strong if you're able to get it. You would need 2 admin emblems. There's only 4 admin champions. To get 6 is pretty difficult, but if you do, it's really strong. Animal squad is somewhat complicated, but essentially when an animal squad kills another champion, they pretty much get a buff, attack damage and ability power, and they also get more health. And then pretty much the health scales late game, so it's a pretty good synergy to start in the early game, and it scales pretty hard, but you don't really need to have an early game to be successful with it. Civilian, pretty simple. They give you team mana. Gadgeting is pretty strong. If you get 3 or 5, you get a pretty buffed, really good item. Versions of items in the game. It's kind of like radiant items, but not as strong. But for example, there's a Sunfire gadgeting item that just does a lot more damage and gives you a lot more health. Laser Corp, a little drone follows your Laser Corp champions, and they just pretty much do magic damage to the team. There's a 50% chance every time they get hit or every time they auto attack, they do magic damage. And there's a 0.5 second cooldown, so I feel like it's pretty balanced. It's pretty good. It's not insanely strong, but it does give your team extra damage. And 9 Laser Corp is pretty good and I think it's possible. 1 2 3 4 5 6 7. Okay, so you have to need 2 emblems to get Laser Corp, and you have to be level 9 typically. Mech Prime is pretty funny. If you have 3 Mech Prime, it's pretty much like Dragonmancer in set 7.5. However, the way it works is that you choose your Dragonmancer or your Mech Prime, and the 2 nearest Mech Primes, they pretty much get sacrificed. 100% of their health goes to your Mech Prime or whoever you choose as your Prime, and they get a shit ton of ability power and attack damage. So it just, you know, you just get one super strong unit. It's kind of like the legend trait from set 7. If anybody played set 7, Aux Force is pretty good. Aux Force is a pretty good trait. I think, you know, whether you go 2 or 4 Aux Force, 6 and 8 is kind of risky. I definitely don't recommend trying to go too high on the Aux Force tree, because you're gonna play a lot of units like Talon and Fiora. Late game isn't the strongest. You know, typically you want to go 2 or 4 Aux Force if you're playing a Philios carry or Fiora carry or Viego carry. It's really good because once they're before the unit dies, they're invulnerable for a whole second, so they pretty much stall the other team for at least a second for each Aux Force, and they get a bunch of attack speed. If they have any healing, then they can actually heal the health back up and, you know, get a second chance in the fight. It's pretty good. And as you can see, the attack speed increases with missing percent health. So as the champions start to die, they get faster and faster. Pretty good. Star Guardian is the synergy itself is not extremely strong. They just gain more mana from however they get mana, either by auto attacking, by getting hit, by the civilian synergy that gives mana, anything that, even blue buff, anything that gives them mana, they get more of that. So it's a pretty good synergy on they just rapid fire casting. And all the champions in the Star Guardian tree, like every single one of these champions are pretty strong. So Star Guardian is going to be a staple synergy to, like, if you know don't if you're not really good at rolling and you don't really know what to play, you pretty much just play Star Guardian. All these champs all do AP damage except Nyla is AD, and Kaisa does a mix of AD and AP. So you can build her as an auto attacker, or you can build her as a AP damage, magic damage dealer. I will prefer, she's a little bit stronger as an auto attacker with some crit. You know, you can play with recon or build JG, but for the most part she's supers is a really fun synergy. So what super is, they grant your team 30% damage if you have all 3 supers in. So, and they're Gangplank's a 1 cost, Lee Sin's a 2 cost, and Malphite's a 2 cost. So late game, you can't really throw this in to give your team 30% attack damage or bonus damage, because you won't have any frontline. But if you're re-rolling and you 3-star these units, it's super strong, because every 3-star unit on your team gets bonus damage by 5%. So if you 3-star all 3 of these, that's 50%, plus another 5% for your carry, plus another 5% for whoever you 3-star. So you're looking, usually you're getting around 45 to 50% bonus damage once you 3-star everybody. It's a really fun reroll synergy. However, it's pretty hard to run supers when 1 or 2 more people are contesting it. So it's really good to scout to see if if you're rerolling a 1 cost or 2 cost, make sure if you can throw supers in there, great, but definitely not something you should do every time you reroll. Threat is a really cool synergy this set. So they took out dragons, and then they put in all these threat units. So threats are powerful, or more powerful than other units, and you may field any number of threats. They don't have any effects though. There's no traits, there's no bonuses that gives your team or any other threats. All they are is that they're just pretty strong units that throw in. So this is a very flexible set. So if you're looking for some AP damage, yeah, just throw in some Aurelion Soul, throw in some Vel'Koz. Fiddlesticks is pretty good. Even Cho'Gath does a good amount of AP damage. If you need some AD damage, okay, you can throw in Bel'Veth. Bel'Veth is mainly the only AD champion, but I guess you can put in Rammus, or you can put in Ergot, but mainly you put in Bel'Veth for AD. These 2 champions for AP, including Fiddlesticks. And if you just need someone to throw, if you just need a tank, if you're lacking frontline and you can't find a frontline that matches your synergies, okay, just throw in Cho'Gath. He mana weaves the entire team. Rammus, he's a pretty good he has a lot of armor, so if there's teams with a lot of armor, you can just throw Rammus's, and he CCs a lot of units. And then Zac is probably one of the best tanks in the game. Once he dies, he splits on 2 smaller Zacs. So essentially, when you throw in Zac, you're kind of throwing in 3 units. So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. And he also, when he ults, he heals a % of his health, so it's pretty good. And then what I loved about set 4 is that they had Fortune, which is just a 1st to 8th type of synergy. Set 6, I believe, had Pirates. Again, those synergies were every time you lost, you get something in the bank, something stored up, and once you win a round, depending on how many losses, you get a huge cash out. Underground is kind of like the opposite, actually. So what it does is that no matter if you win or lose, you get kind of a stored loot that you can cash out later in the game. Kind of hard to explain, but there's a vault essentially, and you have to open 10 locks to open up your vault. When the vault opens, you can take the loot then, or you can attempt to do another heist for even better rewards. As you can see here, let me see, underground makes 1 progress after each player combat round. After a loss, they make 3. So this actually got changed, I believe, if I'm correct. When you win, it's 2, and when you lose, it's 3. So it's actually better to win streak underground than it is to lose streak underground. I mean, whether you win or lose, you're always making progress to the heist. So it's actually a much easier version than Pirates and Fortune in the past sets. So you know, you can run underground early game, get the first heist. If you're, you know, playing really sweaty, just get the first heist, cash out. You can get a bunch of gold, you can get some 2 or 3 item components. The first 2 heists are actually really strong if you just need a boost. It goes up to 7 heists, so if you get to the 7th one, there's nothing to skip past after that, and you just pretty much get a really huge cash out. Typically, if you want to go for a really big cash out, you're looking between 4 heists and 7 heists. So if you want a really big cash out, go to at least 4 heists. If you're just looking for an early game boost, and you know you're just trying to top 4, then you know look at the 1, 2, or just get the first 2 heists. You know, maybe not the first one, but you can do the second one. You can just get a boost and transition. It's a really fun augment. You guys should play around with this in your games. It's once you guys kind of learn how to play this, it's really strong, and it's probably it's the strongest synergy in the set. Once you kind of know how to play it, how to transition out of it. Ezreal and Kale are really strong units. Samira is the late game carry. Vi is the front line, and Sona is the support champion. So that's all the traits. I don't think there's anything else left to talk about. Oh, let's talk about the first comp. Oh, I guess I can save this for another. So if you like that video, please give a like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and then I will be posting another video regarding all the meta comps. I'll use Mobalytics as a guide, but I will be going much more in depth than what Mobalytics will give you, and honestly a lot of these comps are a little outdated, so I'll make sure to give you guys a more upgraded version from the recent patches. Good luck on you guys' climb, and I'll see you in the next video.